Hi everyone, welcome to the Rackside Chat with industry expert. I am Ruban Kanapathippillai, and joining us today is special guest Mark Pastor from Western Digital's Platform Group, a team that is at the forefront of developing storage infrastructure powering modern AI and HPC workloads. Welcome, Mark. Thank you for joining us at Rackside Chat.
Thank you, Ruben. Great to be here. Appreciate you having me join you.
Mark, it is great to connect with you again. It was pleasure working with you when while I was at Western Digital. Mark, can you give us a little background about yourself and how you are connected to the storage world?
Sure. So I am currently in the product management team for Western Digital's platforms, sometimes referred to as enclosures and a little more on the solution space. I've actually been in the storage industry for around 25 years. I spent quite a bit of time at Seagate and then at Quantum and now at Western Digital. So I've been involved both in devices as well as solutions and systems.
Yeah, I have been in the industry 20 plus years in the storage industry part. This is like the storage, the network and group is very incestuous. Like,
Yes.
to see all you guys go between different companies, but still focus on the storage and how storage can help the world. So while many of the many of the people know Western Digital for its drives, like hard drives, and in between they had the SSDs also. Few are aware of their deep investment in the platform that support innovative compute environments. We are excited to explore how storage is evolving to meet the demands of AI and what that means for the enterprises. Let's dive in. AI is being adapted rapidly across industries, but often the discussion focuses only on compute. In reality, AI starts with data. Could you share your perspective on how AI workloads are evolving and where a storage platform like the ones Western Digital is developing play a key role?
Yeah, sure. So there's several phases of AI workflow that involve training and inference and generation and things like that. And in some cases, you need very high performance storage, and in some cases, you need very high capacity storage, and one might take a priority over the other. What we are finding in AI workflows is that a lot of the servers are being designed and tuned now really to focus on the processing components of the workflows, and storage is therefore becoming less of a integrated component within the servers, and so storage is becoming more disaggregated, and that's very aligned with where we've been going with our storage platform. We have external storage for hard drives. We have external storage for flash storage as well. And that complements the new server architectures now that are really focused more on CPUs and GPUs and power and cooling. And storage can now be put together externally and still meet all of the really demanding performance requirements that integrated storage has been previously looked at.
No, that is very interesting. And when I heard about the disaggregated storage infrastructure part of it, and I know WDC has been in the forefront of it that for a long time, because at that time it was, as you said, you guys were focusing on the HPC side of it. Now with AI, generative AI coming into play, and you guys rightly fit into that, as you mentioned, from one side the latency point of view, other side is the amount of data has to be provided close to that. So that's where you have. So you mentioned about various platform you guys are looking at it. So can you elaborate on like the families of hard drive based platform as well as the flash or SSD based platform, in how WDC is approaching, or how they have been the products you guys were developing in that kind of area?
Yeah, sure. Let's start with the SSD platforms. We really have two key platforms, brands of platforms in that area. There's the OpenFlex Data 24, or the OpenFlex brand, which is really our enclosures for flash storage. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And we also have a brand called RapidFlex, which describes actually one of the key components that's within our OpenFlex products. And it really is the bridge adapter that bridges between the PCI bus and Ethernet storage externally. We had anticipated one of the key trends that's going on here toward very high performant external storage. And so we acquired a company and integrated that into our own IP. That company was called Kazan Networks, and that gave us these bridge adapters that allow us to bridge between PCI and Ethernet. And so now our OpenFlex product family is all about presenting flash storage over Ethernet, leveraging NVMe over Fabric protocols. And what we have found is that when you attach external flash storage that way, the system really sees that storage as being local to the server. And so it basically has all the performance it needs to keep the GPUs, the DPUs, whatever, operating at their full performance. And we've had demonstrated this several times. So that's our OpenFlex platform, which is the SSD flash-based over NVMe over Fabric solution. And then for the other part where we have more demand for high capacity, we have our JBOD solutions. We call those the UltraStar family products. Two most prevalent on the market today is UltraStar Data 60 and Data 102 with capacity for up to 60 hard drives or 102 drives, as the names indicate. And those are connected currently via SAS. But there's a tremendous amount of features in our UltraStar product because, as you know, we are hard drive manufacturer, as you mentioned, and that gives us a lot of deep understanding about how to keep hard drives operating best for performance and for reliability. And so we've integrated key features into our JBODs. We call them IsoVibe is one of those. That's where we create vibration isolation at the connector where the hard drive plugs into the system. And then we have another feature called Arctic Flow, where we've actually designed multiple cooling chambers within the enclosure, which is different than traditional enclosures that might have a single cooling chamber. This has cooling for the front drives, cooling for the back drives, cooling for the electronics, all separate channels for cool air to come into the system and keep everything at the appropriate temperatures. So that really optimizes the overall reliability and performance of the hard drive system, even though those are typically focused on high capacity use cases. You still want to make sure you get the longest life and best performance out of those drives.
Thank you. I think it's a very interesting in both diverse side of it. One side you get the best performance, other side you give best value from the hard drive platforms point of view, because we need to be able to sustain both areas where the GPUs are looking for so much information. One side from a latency and bandwidth to keep them not idle, because GPU is so costly in the market, and if you keep them idle, you are wasting time and money. On the other side, the amount of data it's being used for training and different part of it, but like you said, the 100 drive or 102 drive JBoard with 30 terabyte drives, 3 petabyte on a box.
That's right.
And I have seen firsthand how the engineering team and the manufacturing team has created this system and building some of the largest data center and deploying there. So it's we cannot be more happier to collaborate with Western Digital, because we were one of the early partners of selling rack at the rack level, putting what you are building at the enclosure level, and even testing for all the shipment vibration and all that at the rack level. So that's what we get into that. Yeah. So it's a great partnership with Western Digital at ASA Racklive. Okay. So as we look at it in the future of AI infrastructure, it is becoming more and more complex from various reasons: performance, heat and cooling, and all that. And it needs to be, powerful. How do you see Western Digital's platform group contributing this evolution for AI and HPC market?
Yeah. So, we just talked about what the products are and kind of the high level place that they fit in the AI workflows. But what I think we're seeing is that we're still really at the early stages of architectures being deployed for these AI models. A lot of companies are still investing, just beginning their investments. And so, this whole notion that I mentioned before of disaggregated storage is really, I think, in a fairly early stage. NVMe over Fabrics, as an example, it's only been the past few years where we've really seen that start to take off in a lot of environments. And so, the more or AI oriented or compute centric some environments get, the more they realize the opportunity and need of disaggregating storage. And so I think we're going to see more and more of that, and those architectures are going to get more mature. And then the other thing that we've really done to help with that is we've just recently, matter of fact, this last month now, May, I think it was, we relaunched what we call the Open Composability Compatibility Lab website. It's really an industry open lab that we sponsor. And there's a website called opencomposable.com. You can go there. And that's all about us working with the industry and the ecosystem partners to bring in their components, whether they're flash SSDs or switches or other pieces of hardware and software, to go in and test so that we can kind of stage solutions that include all the pieces that come from different companies and report on the performance and the results of those various deployments. And that's all open to the public to take a look at and say, hey, I'd like to put these SSDs in this enclosure. I'd like to make sure I understand how that would perform. And there's a good chance we'll have that posted on that website. So we're sponsoring it and we're helping orchestrate it, but it's open to the industry to participate in it. And we expect that that'll become more and more important. That's why we did that.
No, I think it's very important, the openness. Like if you look at the Meta's effort on OCI, Open Compute in Infrastructure, yeah, OCP,
Yeah,
open, open part of it, and where WDC have been investing on to make sure, because I think you want to sell more drives, you want to sell more product, but if that other side of the team has to do a lot of work, it takes resistance. And by providing that kind of capability lab and the resources, it makes it easier to get the adoption early and then get the value late. Yeah, so it's a great work you guys are doing on that. Thank you.
totally agree. Yeah.
And the next one, I think you touched a little bit on it, but if I want to go a little bit, double click on the training versus inference AI use cases. How does the storage architecture differ for these two AI workload, and what are the solutions and partnership being developed by WD to address that in that area between training and inference?
Sure. Yeah. Well, on the training side, I would say that the real key requirement, or the key attribute of storage components for training, is to make sure that the training data can be stored. And typically, there's a very large amount of data that goes into the training part of the workflow. And so you definitely want something that's got reliability and capacity as your primary requirements for storage for training in AI. Now, eventually, that training data is going to want to get piped into the actual training process, which then becomes a high performance piece of the process. And so typically, you would have hard drive storage that has massive storage and petabytes of content, and then that will be fed through high performance storage. It might be staged on flash, at least pieces of it, to serve the actual training model, which people still want to get that done as quickly as possible. So there's a performance component of it, but the primary requirement for storing that content would be the capacity and the reliability. So that's where our JBODs, more of the bits for training content, would be on hard drives. On the inferencing side, particularly at the edge or for real-time applications, the focus is a lot more on immediate response and performance and IOPS and low latency. So flash-based storage, once you do the training, then the input data and the data that you're acting on is sometimes real time, or you don't have this mass storage requirement for data on the inferencing side, unless you want to, unless the output is generational, which we'll talk about in a minute. And so that's really all about storing things on high performance data that can feed these real-time processes or very fast-time processes where low latency and high IOPS are key. So that's where our OpenFlex platforms would be most in demand. And as I mentioned before, the great news is this external storage, when attached via protocols like NVMe over Fabrics, really can keep these high performance workflows fully saturated. So it ends up working out pretty well. If the output, like I mentioned, if the output is generational, then of course you'll take that output and you'll end up storing it back on hard drives, probably because that's where you're creating, again, large amounts of storage. And so the output could be mass storage, and that would sit on hard drives as well, most likely.
Yeah, what we have seen is, I mean, we've been looking at some of those. I think what you mentioned, you create, when you generate all of these, you create some vector database or, graph database. So those information is need to be accessed very quickly to make sure the response to, when people ask questions comes back. So that can be come out of, as you mentioned, flash, because of the low latency as well as high bandwidth, high performance. And then the other side of it can be used hard drive based platform, because that will be the size of the data.
Yeah.
And it is great. And what you guys are doing, I really enjoy working together at Racklive and ASA Computers. We have firsthand, because what we do is, we work with 3 to 4 thousand small to medium businesses as well as some enterprises. So when we looked at this area, we have firsthand seen how intelligent data infrastructure is becoming the bottleneck for AI transformation. So when in the large, as you mentioned about the training and those, we go with the bigger, JBots or OpenFlex solution. And at the same time, we are also finding smaller solution, which we still need some storage. And so we have launched our own AI solution called AI Curate. So what helps enterprises adapt Gen AI and obtain better data insight. This is more of a document retrieval product which we just launched last month. It performs like the ones you described. Yours was the larger scale, and ours is at the smaller scale. For say you have hundreds of files, and you need to extract information and all that. We were able to do that. So how are you guys looking at as an overall market? AI is going to influence your company.
Yeah. Well, clearly AI is, I think, as everybody sees, it's not to be ignored from a general market growth perspective. It in fact affects all of these pieces of it. And I did talk about, evolutionarily, we will continue to see the development of the architectures, I think, aligned with the direction that we're going. We're a storage company still, and so we see, we need to make sure we architect storage properly. Now, one of the things I was going to mention in the previous to your previous question, and you spoke to it very well, is we do work very closely with companies like Racklive, with Racklive particularly, to make sure that the solutions are tuned and deployed properly. But as I also mentioned with our OCCL initiative, that all the components that we put together that we test with and that we consult with all the various providers throughout the ecosystem to make sure we understand what the key requirements are for all the various pieces, so that when you come together with your solution, there's a lot of validation of the parts that go into that as well. So, and then I guess the last thing I would speak to is, the scalability piece of it. When we look at external storage, like I've been talking about, I think that becomes kind of the new way people are thinking about their architectures. Whereas before, everything was fairly integrated. Servers had the storage as well as the processing in it, and it was just which type of server and all that. But I think storage is going to take more of an external role. I think that makes it more modular. I think it makes it more scalable, independent of any of the other parts of the system. So, we're going to continue to work on connectivity that is prevalent throughout the industry and easy to work with. And so that you can have, however many enclosures of storage you need shared across however many workflows or servers or hosts that you need. And I think it's going to go in that direction to optimize, TCO, total cost of ownership, and to deliver the performance that's required.
No, I think you hit it right there because of and there are so much changes happening, and the GPU and their lifetime is becoming shorter and shorter because as Nvidia and others release newer and newer system, and if you couple them too tightly, the storage, for people who don't know, I mean, it stays at least minimum 3 years. Normally, in the Western digital drives can be used for 5 years, 3 to 5 years. And when you have that kind of investment and that kind of thing, decoupling and disaggregating gives value, and you don't have to go and keep throwing a lot of money at when you change your compute infrastructure or the networking. You don't have to go and change the storage component also, yeah, on that. So it is amazing that if you look at the high level, again, this is, I'm going to ask you to think in the future, what do you see as a next wave of AI trend and interest from what you guys are seeing at WDC, as well as in your personal level also with your long career? What do you see as a next layer trend?
Well, I think about it mostly from the storage perspective, which might be how you're intending the question. And I spoke to that a little bit, and I think knowing what I know a little bit about our roadmap and where we are today, I think there's a lot of opportunity to continue to refine and strengthen the way storage plays its roles, in AI workflows. I think AI, from a high level perspective, as a group of processes, is going to continue. I mean, I see it every day. I think everybody listening here sees it every day in all industries. It's going to affect everything that we do. In many cases, to help us do our jobs better. In some cases, to take on more of the tasks, and have us focus in other areas. But I think from a storage perspective, it's really going to be, I think we see it evolving further. We see where that opportunity is, with our platforms and our enclosures, potentially even devices at some point in time. We see those being impacted by how we think the future architectures are going to look. And I think I've spoken quite a bit about what I think those future architectures will look like in terms of, more ease of connectivity and sharing of storage, throughout the environment, for whether it be performance storage or capacity storage. So I think that's what's going to happen. And then, of course, I think collaboration is a huge piece. So I mentioned OCCL. We're sitting here with Racklive, and we very much value our relationship with companies like Racklive, and we really enjoy working with you so that you can deliver these very strong solutions to your customers. And I think the level of collaboration across the industry is going to be another key ingredient for AI solutions that are going to drive a lot of the future.
No, I think there are so many of these areas you have touched on it. Like, for example, I think you guys are working with a company called Peak.io. We've been talking to them, and same way we get to work with many different compute partners, accelerators partners, and the storage, which is, we normally always fall back to WDC for any storage need. But what we have seen is, as ASA Racklive, we closely, tightly work with our enterprise customer, and as I said, small, medium, and large enterprises. What we have seen is they hear about AI and so much, fancy word. What we are trying to do is, how do we get a product or solutions which can go and solve their problem? For example, like a dental office or medical officers or local government or educational thing. There's so much information, so much data. So we can scale from a small appliance where people can plug it in, and that is called AI Curate. And we can ask natural query questions, but this is secure, private, and personal, where it is not your data, it doesn't get leaked to the internet and all that. And the other side of it, we work with the large customers to build AI infrastructure at the rack level, where we put your JPods or OpenFlex solutions and build out the large scale GPU clusters, where one of the investment we are making is on research and analysis of liquid cooling also on that area. Again, storage doesn't need that level, but the GPU needs. So how do you overall manage those things? So for that, your disaggregated solutions really make sense, because as the GPU continue to evolve, and the storage doesn't need to be changed again and again.
Right.
So there are so much opportunity for us to work together. So any last words before I close out, Mark?
The only thing I'd say is I just reiterate that we very much enjoy the relationship with Rack Live, and appreciate the opportunity to have this chat with you. And everything that you just wrapped up with is very aligned with how we expect things will evolve. And I will look forward to working with your team on doing that.
So thank you, Mark, again for joining us and sharing your insights today. And also thank you to our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow Rackside Chat for more insights at the intersection of infrastructure and innovation. This is Ruben Kanapathippillai signing off today, and see you soon in another Rackside Chat with experts.